Hello and welcome to all of you. You're watching Tech24. In this edition, we tell you more about the vast cyber attack on Microsoft Exchange. What started as an alleged state-sponsored attack is becoming a global crisis, claiming at least 60,000 victims worldwide, mainly small and medium-sized businesses. And in Test24, we tried the groundbreaking ready-to-fly FPV drone by DJI. As you'll see, it lets users of any skill level feel the thrill of immersive flight. Now, several days ago, Microsoft was targeted by a massive cyber attack. Allegedly, it all began as a Chinese state-sponsored espionage attack against specific individuals using flaws in its email software. But it has now escalated into a devastating global hacking scheme as criminal groups rush to compromise victims before they secure their systems. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency is now calling on all organizations across all sectors to follow guidance to address the exploitation of at least 4 vulnerabilities in Microsoft's Exchange email app. Well, let's take a listen to the White House Press Secretary, Jen Psaki.
This is a significant vulnerability that could have far-reaching impacts. First and foremost, this is an active threat. And as the National Security Advisor tweeted last night, everyone running these servers, government, private sector, academia, needs to act now to patch them. We are concerned that there are a large number of victims and are working with our partners to understand the scope of this.
Estimates of the number of victims of the cyber attack continue to vary from 60,000 to a staggering 250,000 companies globally. Well, to talk more about it, let's turn to Adrian Gendre from the cybersecurity firm Secure. Hello and welcome.
Hello, Julia.
So could you tell us more about this attack, its extent, and what hackers were hunting for?
So it all started from a set of vulnerabilities on the Microsoft Exchange servers, messaging servers. It allowed hackers to set up what we call a web shell. This is a tool that allows hackers to have remote administration access to the servers. And while Microsoft has provided a patch to secure the servers, if the servers have had the access opened, it is still open as of today. And with the administrative access, you have unlimited possibilities in terms of consequences of this.
Now, since attention has been drawn to these flaws, there's been a flood of attacks by criminal groups this time who are taking advantage of the situation.
Yes, totally. And we are already seeing a set of consequences of this, and we expect the worst to come later. What we're seeing right now, we're seeing hackers leveraging the access to all those servers. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of servers. We're seeing ransomware being deployed, malware being deployed on the servers. And we really want to alert on what we will be seeing next. We expect a rise of highly qualified spear-phishing emails, CEO fraud, identity spoofing, because the hackers have had access to context communications between companies and all those partners. So they will be leveraging those information to do what we call threat jacking, running other attacks with a real history.
That's right. And now this, of course, has now become a geopolitical issue. Do you think that the U.S. will actually retaliate against China? I mean, we know that the Biden administration is already exploring penalties, including sanctions against Russia for the SolarWinds attack that occurred just several weeks ago.
Yes, so of course I cannot speculate on what the U.S. will do. However, what we are seeing, and we see it from the operational view here in the threat landscape, we're seeing big nations structuring themselves with offensive cybersecurity strategies. We often speak about China, Russia, Iran, North Korea having offensive cybersecurity strategies, but we're seeing the Western countries also putting in place strategies like, military. It's a new weapon. And the consequence of this, we are seeing the quality of the attacks increasing. We are seeing groups being more and more structured. And so we're seeing the attacks much more challenging to block efficiently, actually.
And more people are saying that this is no longer a Cold War, but it is becoming warmer as we go forward. Thank you very much, Adrian Gendre from the cybersecurity firm Secure. Now on to another story. Have you ever heard of planned obsolescence? For those who haven't, well, it's a trend which consists of designing a product with an artificially limited useful life or a purposely frail design so that it becomes obsolete after a certain predetermined period, after which it needs to be replaced. Well, France has been a vanguard in fighting this practice and has now developed the world's first repair index with a score to indicate how easy it should be to repair electronic items. Catherine Kadir-Clifford has more.
Since the start of the new year, certain products are marked with the mysterious new logo here in France. Scores from 1 to 10 measure an object's reparability. They aim to encourage consumers to throw away less.
The key phase for CO2 emissions is the manufacturing process. The longer appliances last, the more they can be repaired and the less CO2 is emitted.
The new logos can be found on devices ranging from TVs to smartphones, computers, lawnmowers and washing machines. In 2019, 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste, that's discarded phones, computers and other gadgets, was thrown away worldwide. The equivalent of more than the combined weight of all the adults in Europe. French consumers appreciate the new transparency.
I think it's very good because often you don't know if you can repair it or not, and then who you should call to do so. So for me, it's a major factor when I'm buying a product.
The index is controlled by the state but calculated by manufacturers, based on criteria such as the documentation that accompanies the product, how easy it is to dismantle, and the availability and price of spare parts. In case of fraud, the manufacturer risks a fine of up to €15,000, though this organisation says that's not enough of a deterrent.
The role of consumers is also important. They will undoubtedly not take it well if a company doesn't deliver on their promises, when everyone wants a product that is repairable.
France's repair index is the first of its kind in the world, leading the way for a similar European Union initiative. In November, the European Parliament voted in favour of drafting laws for repairability labelling in all member states, aiming to put them into action by 2024.
And it's now time to turn to our tech editor who's been standing by on set with us. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Julia.
So planned obsolescence is not just a wicked plan by companies to try to make more profit. It was actually first created a while back to try to slash mass unemployment.
Yeah, so if you go back to the 1920s, this is when the idea really first came about, when demand for new cars was dropping in the US. So General Motors came up with this idea that they would make these incremental cosmetic improvements to their cars every year. So this is one of the first examples of it, the 1923 Chevrolet, and it's really the same. The technology underneath the body is the same as it had been for years. Now, this created a sense that the previous models were nonetheless obsolete and encouraged people to buy the new one. Now, many industrialists thought this was absolutely inspired, and they thought, hey, this is a way to get out of the Great Depression because it creates more demand, therefore creates more manufacturing and more jobs. Not everyone, though, has been on board with the idea. If you look in the 1950s and 60s, famously Volkswagen came out with this series of adverts criticizing planned obsolescence and sort of said our cars are going to last longer because they have parts that are the same for many years, so you can easily find a replacement. Now, since then, there's always been this cohort of people sort of saying planned obsolescence makes us both wasteful because we're getting rid of all these previous models, and it also makes us discontented because we never have the newest one. But to this day, you have to admit that our economy is in a large part driven by this idea, and technology is progressed through it as well. So everything from smartphones to printers are planned to be obsolete in a sense, even Volkswagen cars nowadays.
Now, of course, consumers are now realizing that all of this is creating huge amounts of waste, and that's a problem.
Yes, and one of the companies fighting against this is iFixit. They're a website that was created in California in 2003, but now they have tens of millions of users around the world, and they help people repair their stuff with free tutorials and guides on where to buy the right tools. But they also conduct research and conduct campaigns. They have their own repairability ratings and even worked with the French government on producing the repairability index that the story was talking about.
Thank you very much, Peter. And we're going to move on now to Test 24. We're going to test something that you'll definitely need to repair if you crash it. Consumer drones have been around for more than a decade now, so I was quite surprised to learn that what we have here on set today is the first of its kind. It's the DJI FPV, Peter. What does that mean?
Yes, so DJI stands for for Dajiang Innovations because it's a Chinese company, and FPV is first person view. So what that means is that you'll get a pilot's view of the drone from the camera on the drone right into a headset like this, and you can even control it with a motion controller. So you turn this around, pull the trigger to go faster, and that is actually your controller. Now, this setup is traditionally used for drone racing because this kind of first-person view gives you a very precise maneuverability. So you can go very, very fast and you can do all sorts of complicated maneuvers. Now, as you can imagine, this is a very immersive and very exciting way to fly a drone, but it also is somewhat vomit-inducing, I find, if you're new to it, yeah.
Well, could we actually try it here in the studio and make it fly? Or?
Well, I'm not about to do that because it goes from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2 seconds, and the top speed is 87 miles an hour. So this thing is rapid.
Right, we may not try it in this studio.
Yeah, it might
least.
cause quite a lot of damage that I can't afford.
All right, I'm going to have to get one myself then. How much is it?
Well, yeah, there you might have an issue. It's 1,350 euros with everything included. But there are a lot of cheaper drones out there. They are not FPV drones. That's the thing about this one. You cannot find a cheaper FPV drone which works out the box. You'd have to make it yourself, and even then it would probably end up costing you around more than 1,000 euros.
Well, thank you very much for that, Peter O'Brien there. That brings us to the end of this week's edition of Tech 24. We'll see you soon.